Hey everybody, what's going on? We're back with another installment of the Square Roundtable, the show where we talk about the topics that we don't usually cover in the podcast, available every single Tuesday night. My name is Juan. I'm joined alongside Ryan and Keith. And once again, as always, if you look up above, you know what we're talking about today. And it's about the WWE as a whole. We talked about the network previously. We talked about part-timers and all that cool stuff. But what about the presentation of the product itself? Obviously, we saw that at WrestleMania a little while ago. Ronda Rousey was there. And obviously, it got the ball rolling. It got people thinking. What if this was a way of the WWE switching gears a little bit and maybe how they present things more as a sport, but then there's people that also will like it, you know, as a Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones, basically episodic television, as they say every week. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Taking it first to Mr. McNulty. I want to get your feedback straight off the bat. Which do you prefer and why?
Well, that's the thing, is this is going to be kind of a cop-out answer, is because the great thing about wrestling is that it can be both. It can be both the sport and the episodic drama if it wants to be. And it really depends. It can focus more on one or the other at any given time, really. Personally, I probably prefer like the drama, the Breaking Bad type of style. But I also like sports too. I enjoy watching football and things like that. But yeah, so I think wrestling needs to look at the in-ring stuff more as a sport. I think it's kind of gotten away from that. NXT is a great example where I feel like it still feels like a sport. The way that they present it, the titles really matter. There's a lot of number one contender matches, which is a lost art in the main product. And then at the same time, you can kind of have the stories where you got to give us a little more cliffhanger endings type stuff like Breaking Bad would do to really make us want to tune into the next. So once again, I'm kind of, I think you can kind of take from both places, and wrestling has that ability. So that's kind of where I stand.
I think the discussion really depends on how grand of a scale you want to think about it. Like as a full product, yes, it should be a sport. Like the matches should be a serious thing, and it should treat itself as such. But like on a per character basis, it should be more like a TV drama, because wrestling can be real dumb, like not white golfers and male cheerleading squads and guys that came from the planet Warrior.
But it's great.
But it's great. It's completely great. But that's the part that shouldn't take itself seriously. That's where the drama should be. Where if it's a match, then yes, it's 100% seriousness. But you can have that serious match against a dumb hockey player and a man that lives in a dumpster or that will repossess your vehicle.
I think that's the biggest issue with wrestling, where the characters are so different. Like Ryan, I agree 100%. Wrestling can be both. The issue is that when it comes to the matches, sometimes the gimmicks don't really allow the sport factor. I mean, Eugene. I mean, you say the name and you just can't think, okay, he's going to have a logical, serious sports entertainment match. That just doesn't happen. You picture Eugene doing his shtick, doing the funny stuff, getting the crowd going, and Santino, there's a ton of options that sort of lead the WWE into what a lot of people complain about, which is that you try to be a little bit of everything, and then you sort of end up being nothing. So what is sort of your preferences? Say you have to pick for the backstage segments, for example. We're agreeing, so yeah, it's based on the characters, based on all these things. But is it okay when they present themselves? I got to bring Lucha Underground as an example. Lucha Underground does a great job of having you watch each and every episode, and each moment, the camera angles, everything just works so well. With WWE, they cut out a lot of stuff for the Hulu version. Most of the times you can catch up on YouTube, and then, that's there. There's the 3-hour show, but then there's the 2-hour show. So how is it for you, for whatever TV show you watch, it's not WWE, but then comparing it to WWE? Does it feel that gap of it being a TV show? I know it's kind of weird, but once again, it's so many things that it's hard to even just dumb down into one thing.
So wait, what are you asking me? That was long.
Yeah. There's like 10 questions in there.
Exact question.
Yeah, I know. But basically, how does WWE then compare to a TV show, a standardized TV show? That was so much better.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is, it's not as it's like a show like Breaking Bad. I feel like it's just so dense and tightly woven, and wrestling just isn't that. There's a lot of loose ends and things that never get tied up, and it's a lot more drawn out in a lot of ways. But there, the payoffs are just as good as those, the Breaking Bads and all that. So it's kind of tricky. But to kind of jump back to the sports versus TV show kind of element is, I think first and foremost, it really has to establish itself as the sport and really kind of hone that before you can kind of go to the character side and go deeper with that.
Exactly, because if you don't have that core, you don't have that solid core, then it's just a bunch of people kind of parading around in weird situations. But as we've been talking, there's a character that I've thought of that really exemplifies this example, and that's Bray Wyatt. Like, he's the guy we all love. He's serious and all, but everything's so mystical about him and crazy. It's interesting that he's basically like the poster boy for this.
Interesting example, because Bray Wyatt is a character that has been given a lot of opportunities. He's faced John Cena, Daniel Bryan, but always, Undertaker, but always sort of just, stays at that same level. Is it because of that? Because I think that maybe that's where the problem is. When it's characters that is natural progression, they just can't do the sports thing because then they got to give up the character.
Well, that's the thing is, like, they need to, maybe WWE needs more of that drama part where, like, characters need better story arcs. How has Bray Wyatt really progressed in the last year? You can't really, you haven't really seen his character grow or change in any way, aside from the fact that he just randomly decided to not want to have the Wyatt family with him anymore. And we don't even know why. We never found out. So, I mean, that's definitely something we need to see more of. And another thing I would kind of like to see is WWE kind of needs to establish, like, a canon in the way that, like, I guess we just accept that Undertaker can shoot lightning bolts and things like that. But maybe, like, we kind of have got to set some ground rules at some point as to, like, what can really fit in this universe and what can't. Because, like, you look at, like, the early 90s stuff, like Keith was mentioning with the Dumpster Guys and Repo Man and all that, where it's like, let's just kind of maybe set a universe that we can kind of accept, like a lot of other TV shows have, and just kind of play within those rules.
Agreed, up until you have the people that are going, well, that's not canon, and stuff like that. Then it gets real bad.
But I think that's the problem. Going back to WrestleMania, I think that it is a
WWE GT.
Oh man! But I do want to bring up something from WrestleMania, which is that in the same show that we got a UFC reference, there was Undertaker versus Bray Wyatt. So I think that you mentioned, Ryan, is absolutely where it needs to go, because Impact Wrestling, TNA, some people don't like the product, for all the complaints, but when you watch it, you have a set idea of what they're trying to do. It's not trying to, like, grasp all these straws. Like, there's not this overly elaborate character, at least now at the moment, Because even when they had Abyss was simply a hardcore guy. You could put him into the sports world, and it made sense. Now, with Lucha Underground, they're the opposite. I mean, there are these mystical characters and all that, but it's labeled as a episodic TV show the same way other series are. But then we go back to WWE. And it's none of the above, and at the same time, it's all of the above. So, having said that, what is the long-term appeal of the WWE as the current format that it has for you? Is it the characters? Is it the sport? Is it a mix? Or what is it about one of those specific things that keeps you tuning in?
I definitely think it's the characters that really keep me tuning in. As much as I like the sport element, it's every week I'm tuning in because I'm like, oh, what's Dean Ambrose going to do? what's Seth Rollins going to do? You want to see progression. The best episodes of Raw are when we say things are happening. It feels like the stories are moving in a direction. So I guess I'm more of the character side.
It's a cop-out answer, but I'm going to say both. I think the important part is taking those characters and kind of weaving them in and out of the whole sport thing when it's necessary. So have them have their great matches when it's necessary, then have them build up in like a dramatic storyline fashion when it's deemed necessary. So finding that balance, that's where I kind of fall.
Yeah, I agree. I think the problem with the balance is that obviously times have changed because of the Benoit thing and all that, so things are way more careful or way more thought out, and then a lot of things are limited when it comes to the sports part, but then you go to the character part, and it's also like limited. I mean, how many times do we in the podcast complain, oh, but like you just said, Ryan, they need to work a better story for this guy, or it just doesn't make sense when you compare it to another TV show, and then that just completely keeps my attention. But then Nikki Bella twin situation, they just randomly went from hating each other to loving each other again. Nothing was explained. It hurts. So, bonus thing. I know we're running low on time, but I like this. Why is it that we as fans, so people online, just people anywhere, whenever we talk about the storylines in wrestling, it's almost treated as if like it's supposed to be bad? Am I the only one that feels sort of like that? Because whenever I talk about wrestling and I talk about a storyline, people are like, what the hell are you talking about?
I think it's just because the payoffs for wrestling are so awesome in a lot of ways. I mean, we can look at Rollins cashing in at WrestleMania 31. Some of those are just so good, it keeps you watching, that they get away with murder, basically, when it comes to storytelling. There's so many times things are just dropped and never explained. They do what's convenient. No other TV show can get away with that, but they do. And it's because they have the great payoffs, and there's kind of an addictive nature to wrestling that they're allowed to do that, even though it's inexcusable in almost any other media.
And plus, you got to remember, wrestling is the show that never stops. So other TV shows have the luxury of creating a big story arc, having the big payoff, and then that's it. There's either a cliffhanger or a definitive ending. With wrestling, they're back on the road the next night, already going into the new story. So you can't really have that giant payoff, because then you might be hurting something in the future. So maybe that's why they feel neutered, but yeah.
My weird way, and the only way I know, I think wrestling can be summarized as comfort food that you can get an autograph from. Think about that.
Well
Deep stuff.
My life just got so much sadder with that sentence.
All that there's left is to subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
There's a button somewhere in here, and you can hit thumbs up. But yeah, this is a pretty great discussion. To basically summarize, wrestling is a loosely based scripted TV show. So there are those things, but because there's a live element, the audience, I mean, we didn't even get to talk about that, how for everything that a storyline can be planned out, that audience can pretty much just say, you suck, and then it dies a week and later. So that's the great thing about wrestling. It
Reactive,
changes every week.
I think is a good word.
Exactly. It's reactive. Ryan does a way better job of summarizing things than I do. So for all that, if you want to hear him, Keith, and myself, you can check out the podcast available every single Tuesday. And you can check out other SRTs in this channel, including, I don't know, fill me in. What can we get here?
All right, we got plenty of other SRTs that are in the backlog that you can check out, such as What If the WWE Network Failed? Do Undefeated Streaks Matter Anymore? Best Finishers, Best Raw Format, and a ton more, including a WWE 2K16 wish list. And what is Juan mouthing right now?
No, I'm just saying, oh my god, it's so much content.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if he was trying to cue me in on something, but I did my job.
Well, thank you, sir.
And you did it way better than I did, so great job.
But yeah, thanks for watching. We'll be back with the ton more stuff, including the fight nights right here on the channel. Thanks for watching.